Alright, we're starting the overlay. I've got 12 or 6 strands draped over to make 12. This is going to be a tan and black, and when you're cutting your strands, I'm going to just give you some, I would say, the minimum lengths you're going to want to cut your strands for this. The first strand I cut up and I cut was 98 inches. So you want to be, I think the first one you probably cut at least 98 inches. The next one will be 120 inches. And you can just lay them across here when you get them cut. Just lay them across like this. Again, at the bottom, I usually let one side hang a little lower than the other when I drape the cords over down at the bottom there. Third strand will be 170 inches. Now I do everything in inches. You can convert it to feet later. The fourth strand would be 190 inches. Fifth strand 220 inches, and the final strand would be 240 inches at least. Now these are just minimums. Again, 98, 120, 170, 190, 220, and 240. The very last, the 240, you can let those hang evenly at the bottom, because that's where we'll be tying up our taper twists. I believe if you cut them at least that long, you might want to do them longer. Again, err on the side of having too much rather than not enough, and you can work it out later after you know what you've got. On this, I made the third strand, okay, that I cut, a tan one. So the 170 inch strand was tan, and the 220 inch strand was also a tan. And when I lay them out up here at the top of the whip, I'm actually going to group the two together. It doesn't really matter what way you have them lined up here. You can mix them, you can put different colors, you can make them all one color, it doesn't matter. You can play around and experiment with making them each strand different colors if you want to, but I'm going to do it like this. Alright, so we've got all of our strands laid out. 6 on this side, 6 on this side. It's going to be a 12 plat, which is going to be under 3, over 3, standard whip maker's plat. Before I get started, I've got them just draped across like that up here at the top. So again, this is, you can do it different ways. The way I've always done mine is take the top one around and then around again and then under. So I'm kind of closing off that top part there with the first plat that I do. I take this one from the other side, around and around again, and back under, pull it tight, just kind of closes that off up there. Then you can go ahead and you can go around and around again, or you can go ahead and transition into a regular whip maker's plat, under 3 over 3. Just want to make sure it's all nice and tight up here at the top. This is going to be a point where the whip has a pretty good amount of stress on it. If it's sticking out the end of the handle, or even down into the cup of the handle, this is the part that will be in there if you pull your whips up tight, like I'm accustomed to doing. Kind of give it a little tug, make sure it's good and tight. You start to see the tan coming into the picture here. That stuff below you is going to get nice and tangled. The easiest way to deal with that, I found, is usually the first, if it's not really tightly tangled, you can just kind of pick straight up on the cords and they'll come right out. Or you can just grab one strand at a time and just pull it straight up. It usually comes out pretty well. Every now and again you'll get a knot. You'll have to stop what you're doing and really dig through there and try to sort it out, but it doesn't happen a whole lot. usually at the beginning, especially unless you're working on a really long whip. Now, if you're using a really long whip, untangling the, say like on a 12 or 10 or 14 foot cow whip, you're going to have a lot of untangling to do. You're going to stop quite often and just pull them out. Generally, with these shorter whips, it's not as big of an issue. Trying to make sure you give even amount of tension on both sides. Try to make sure your belly's straight. Make sure you can give it a tug every now and again. Also, now here's the part that I haven't told you yet. If you were, once you make your 6-foot whip, you decide you want to make a larger one, say a 12-footer, like what they use a lot in Florida on the range. All you do is just basically double everything you see here. You do everything double. The places where I drop them, you just drop them at twice the distance. The strands, cut them twice as long. At the end of it, you'll come out with a 12-foot whip instead of a 6. But it's probably better to start with a 6-footer first and maybe work your way up there. First whip I ever made was a 14-foot black cow whip. Made it for a cowboy in Florida, and he bought it. So the very first whip I ever made, I actually sold because the guy wanted me to make it, and he wanted to buy the first whip I ever made. And he had that thing for a long, long time, and I think he eventually gave it to his son, if I remember correctly. Now I'm using a combination of cord here. The black was actually 650 that had the core in it, and the tan was coreless. And as you'll be able to tell, it's going to make just as nice a whip. I prefer the coreless. Sometimes you can't get it as quick as you need it because it's not as common. Even through my supplier, it's kind of hit or miss whether I can get it or not. But it just takes a little longer to pull all the strands out of the center of this. So we've gotten started here. You try to keep your tension as you plait nice and even. So you can see I'm not pulling all of my weight into it or anything like that. I'm just giving a real nice solid tug and plaiting it as tight. It's not loose plaiting or anything like that, but I'm not trying to make it into a piece of like a piece of stone either. The first time you're going to drop, you're going to take this 12 plait all the way down to 27 inches. That's the first place I'm going to drop. I'm going to drop a black strand, the shortest one, down there at 27 inches on the right, in that neighborhood anyway. And so just continue on plaiting. Try to keep your seam straight. If your seam's looking like a candy cane already, you're veering one way or the other. If it's veering like this way, you need to pull more tightly to the right, I think it is, and it'll bring it back in line. Actually, the best thing to do is go back and try to get the twist out of it. Having a nice straight seam it looks good, and especially if you're doing it from something like this, where you're from a hook or like I am, you're not in a vise. It's a lot harder to keep the seam straight. A lot of people are surprised when they learn that this is how I make all my whips. I have them all hanging, and I plait every one of them like this. I don't have a vise at all that I use for whip making, and that often has surprised some of my peers. And getting the seam straight is something that takes practice. Again, but it's all about putting the same amount of tension on this side as you do that side. It'll be more difficult to keep it straight once you get down to where you're starting to drop down past 8. You have 8 strands, or dropping down around 5 strands. Sometimes it's really difficult Another thing that makes it difficult to keep your seam straight, if you were making a two-tone whip where one side here would be a certain color and the other side would be a certain color, if that nylon is different in the diameter and the thickness, and this is a little bit different, they're not exactly the same size, sometimes it makes it hard if you're going to be plaiting a two-tone like that. So anyways, keep plaiting on down to around 27. I'm gonna keep plaiting off camera, and we will pick it back up just before we reach 27, and we'll go through some drops. And we'll do a drop at 27, a drop at 30, a drop at 33, and a drop at 36. Alright, I want to show, I've been plaiting some off camera, and I want to show what we've got here so far. This is 24 inches into the project, and if you look at the thong here, there's no gaps. Everything's nice and smooth. It has a real even taper, and it's almost imperceptible right now. You'll remember on the belly we had a drop around 9 inches, 12 inches, and then we ran an 8 plat. So there, the belly tapered a little under here, but the outside we're still running a 12 plat. We're getting ready to start our, to do our first drop on the overlay down here at around 27 inches. Now you can see I'm cutting it close again, so you might want to cut your strings a little longer than what I said. Because if you don't plait as tight as me, you will have less string once you reach this point. So we're just going to set it up, going into the first drop here, coming up at 27 inches. Got about 3 more inches to go, but I just wanted to show the progress so far. And if you, like I said, you notice the seam is still nice and straight. We're still plaiting with good, even tension on both sides. Not trying to be a muscle man, but still trying to get a good pull and tighten it down there. Sometimes people plait differently and they actually pull from the bottom after they've plaited around. That's fine. I got into a habit of plaiting like this a long time ago, and it's been kind of hard for me to change it, but it works. And by now you know my motto: if it works, that's good, or do it. So hopefully by now in the project you've got something that looks like this. You're about this far along, and we'll set up for the next drop in just a few minutes. Before we get to the drop, the first drop, I want to show you something. Let's just say you're plaiting along and you've got a drop that's supposed to come up way down lower, and you realize, man, I cut this one way too short. Or let's just say you've dropped a strand or something already, and you're going to, and you accidentally dropped the wrong strand, or you actually cut the wrong strand. Maybe you cut one of these strands thinking it's the one that's you're dropping. Well, you got choices you can make. You can either undo the whole thing and redo it, or throw it away, start over from scratch, or you can put a cord in there and splice it in. Splicing is probably not something you want to do a lot of, but if you did get in jam, there's a way you can do it and make it look right. Now I'm going to use a piece of yellow so we can see the contrast. Alright, what we're going to do is, there's the one that's too short. We're just going to pretend this is too short and it's not going to make it to where you need it to make it to. You need to get one longer in there. Sometimes you may not have this much, but anyway. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the strand you're going to add in there. You open it up right there, and you insert this cord up in the middle, like so, leaving a little bit sticking out there, just like that. Alright, so you just continue to plait around your cord that's you just placed in there, and you're just securing it inside. I'll just let it sit right here in the middle like this, or maybe a little to the opposite of the side where it's going to go. We just keep plaiting a little bit here. What I'll do sometimes, I'll actually let it sit up there for a couple inches. I'll just be plaiting around it for a couple inches. What you'll do now is pull it down inside where it disappears, This technique is really handy also for if you had a cow whip that somebody sent in that needed a new tail put in it. I usually unplat the whip up to around an 8 plat and start replatting, and I start changing out the strings using a method just like this. So now you've got the strand that it's all covered up. You can't see it. It's under there. And when this other one, the short one, comes around for its next pass, you get ready to change it out. Just make sure you're pulling good and tight, because you want this one here to be in there nice and tight. Alright, when it gets about right there, you take the short one that you need to trade, pull this one to its position, pull the short one to the center, continue plaiting, like nothing ever happened. Now you're plaiting around the strand you just dropped in there, and it has been replaced by this new one. Actually, I think I messed up right there. Hang on. Yeah, I did actually. I missed a stitch there. Go back. I had went under 4/2 instead of under 3/3. Okay, now you'll want to reach down here and pull on this one a little bit, make sure it's snug, and just keep on plaiting. Once you get it secured in there, down in the belly for an inch or 2 or 3, and you can just trim it off and forget about it, because it's disappeared. It's no longer a problem. So pull it. You want to be real careful not to pull this one at first too hard. You can pull a little bit. Hopefully if you got it snug you can take a little bit, but if you really pull down hard on it, it's going to pull it right out of there. So on the first pass you just want to be careful not to pull it out too hard, because you'll definitely pull it right out of there and have to go back and fix it all over again. Okay, so that's basically how you do it. And you would just continue plaiting. Of course, you would be plaiting. The reason why, why I use the yellow is just so it will stand out and you can see where the new cord is. I don't think you'll be ever. Hopefully, if you do this, you're not going to be trading out with a cord. But you see, if you look at that, it's real nice. You can't tell really at all that there was anything that's ever changed or anything was ever moved or anything like that. So that's the way you do that. Hopefully you won't ever have to, but if you ever really need to, well, there you go. Alright, we're now at 27 inches and we're going to make our first drop. I'm going to drop the short one on the right, and I want to position it to where I can drop it. So I want to have it in the 4th spot here. We have 1, 2, 3. It's going to be the 4th one down. So I'm going to take it and pull it into the inside there. Pull these other ones up like this. Alright, the strand's going to be down into the center. We're going to drop to an 11 plat. I drop 1 at a time as a general rule. Every once in a while I'll drop 2 at a time, depending on what kind of whip it is or pattern. But generally on the cow whip I drop 1 at a time like this. Down to an 11 plat now. That strand we just dropped is going to be here on the center and the top. I'm just going to plait around it nice and tightly, and ever so often here I just have to keep it there on the center, and I'll tug on a little bit to pull it down in where it'll be smooth. And I won't actually cut this strand in the center until we get to our next drop point, which is going to be 30 inches. We're just going to keep plaiting around it like that. Now I'll drop 1 from the other side. Then we'll be at a 10 plat. want to drop it in such a way you kind of look at it, make sure that there's no gaps. If there are, you want to kind of pull up on them as you plait. It'll help eliminate some of that. Alright. It's a little different trying to plait with the camera going right here beside me, because I'm not able to stand to where you can see, and it's kind of awkward feeling. But anyway, we're going to make it. Now this strand that we've dropped in the center, you don't really have to worry about it going anywhere. It's in there. It's going to stay there. I used to worry about burning the ends off and stuff like that. I found out that's not really necessary. It's not going to come unfrayed really underneath there with all that pressure and tension against it. I'm going to get down here to 30. In just a few seconds maybe. We'll drop another one. The next drop after that, we'll drop down the strand to a 9 plait at 33 inches. And then we're going to drop down to an 8 plait at around about 36 inches there somewhere. Okay. The reason why I haven't cut this strand yet is, one, to be sure it's anchored in there. Two, if you just cut it up here, you can make like a little lump. I run it down to the next drop, so where there's not really a perceptible lump as much, and I keep them all kind of here on the top, or maybe to one side or the other, and doesn't make as much of a lump and a spot in there as if I dropped it like an inch later or something. That's just something I've seen that works for me. Other people have their ways of doing it. Okay, we're going to just cut that strand there out. I'm going to find me a short one from the other side. Alright, there it is. It's in the 4th position. I'm going to drop it over into the center where the other one was. Continue to plait around. Now we're at a 10 plait. Just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the camera for a second, keep on plaiting, and what we're going to do is, I'll pick it back up before we get ready to drop the next one, but and I'll be able to reposition the camera where it'll be easier for me and for you to see. And just keep on plaiting, keeping everything straight as you can. Okay, now we're at 33 inches. And I've got the short strand over here on the right. What I'm going to do is I'll take out my shears there, cut off the one we've been plaiting around, let it drop off. Alright, that last drop has been eliminated there. Going to keep on plaiting. Alright, now I've got this strand over here I want to drop in the position where I want to drop it. I'm going to drop from a 10 plait to a 9 plait. Alright, going to pull that one into the center there like that. Continue plaiting around. Now when you drop from a 9 to from a 10 to a 9, it's going to look funny right there where you first dropped it. It's just the way it works with the going from under 3 over 2 down to under 2 over 2. You're going to kind of have a spot there that looks a little different, like you missed a stitch. You can see what I mean right there. That's just the way it works. This is the way it's got to be. Nothing to stress out over there. Just the way it looks. Keep on plaiting. Notice again, the second we pan up here, you can see the seam is still nice and straight. And this is the way you taper a nylon whip. I mean, you can't make these things any more narrow by trimming them with a knife like you can with nylon. So you have to taper using, by dropping. It's the way we taper things. You can notice that the taper is starting to take effect. Now we're dropping a lot of strands right over top of the shot strand in and right around in here on our belly. And where a lot of this dropping we're doing here is on that part where it kind of narrowed down rather quickly on the belly. So these drops that we're taking and putting on the inside right through this area are helping somewhat to make the whip look like the taper is still nice and even. You know, you can see there is a taper taking place, but it's not an abrupt drop. So we're trying to avoid having these real abrupt step downs in our plaiting or on our whip. When people look at it, our goal is to try to make it look like one nice even taper all the way down. And what you do on the belly, a lot of times it has a lot to do with what it looks like on the outside there. So it is important. Now really our next drop is around 30. This last one we did was around 33 inches. The next one we're going to do is going to be around 36. By this time you'll be getting around the tapered twist part of where you did this earlier. A lot of times people get done with a 4-plat and they'll just boom, just abruptly stop their belly at the end of the 4-plat. And a lot of times you'll see it kind of makes it a little weird on the end of some of the whips. But if you go ahead and do a tapered twist on the inside and you taper it down to just these two here, when you're coming down your thong here, your overlay that we're working on, you've got something to plait around that's still tapering as you go, and it doesn't make an abrupt stop like it does at the end of if you just cut it off at the end of a 4-plat and stopped right there. Okay, we're going to get ready to do this last drop. You probably hear our little parakeet in the background providing the musical score for our production. The tweet of a little bird. Now normally when I'm plaiting and I'm not got my one elbow pulled into the side to make room for a camera tripod, I can usually really blow this stuff away. It looks like it takes me a while to plait, but I'm just kind of still in an awkward position. So what I'm going to do, okay, we got the one we've been plaiting around here. We're going to an 8-plat. Actually, you can go ahead and plait it on down past the part where it transitions into the taper and twist. You can plait it on down. You can actually drop it anywhere you want to after this point. It doesn't have to be 36. It's wherever it looks the best. Unless, like I tell my son Cordell, you know, there's a way that I'm showing you how to do it, but always look at it and determine for yourself, okay, is this looking right? Maybe I should drop it here, maybe I should drop it there. You know, don't be afraid to improvise, to do what makes the thong look better for you. Okay, so I'm going to cut the one we were plaiting around. Get my trauma shears, cut it, drop it on, drop this one down. We're down to an 8-plat now. Same deal with that as we did earlier. And if you're lucky and you time it just right, your little pattern that you were just working on will come back together, because it was nice and neat up here and then it kind of got a little messed up as you were dropping through here. And now if you hit it just right, you got your pattern put back together again with all your little cords here with the tan ones facing each other again. That's always nice. Again, we're going to run this one down just a little ways. I'm going to give it a tug, make sure it pulls it in tight right there. I'm going to run it for a couple inches under there just so we know it's good and secure. I don't worry about doing much else than that. Never had one come back out before, so I don't worry about it. Just let it run. You can drop it, cut it at any time, and then what we're going to do, and I'm going to do some of this off camera, is we're going to plait the way down the rest of this tapered twist here. Should come to a stop at around 48 inches right here. So we're going to just plait from here on down to around 48 inches, and I'm going to do that off camera, and then we'll come back as we get ready to start plaiting, dropping from an 8-plat down, and then we'll get into the real fun stuff when I show you how to do the tapered twist. Alright, now we're right at 48 inches. That's where I had my knot tied on the belly of my first whip with the end of the little tapered twist we did earlier. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to untie this knot. Okay, I've already started on it, but finish untying it here. It was just a simple knot. I'll let those two hang free, just like that now. We're going to drop from 8 plat to a 6. This is one of the places where anymore I've gotten where I'll actually drop it 2 at a time now, or sort of 2 at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it on down and plat on around, get to where I want to drop one, and this is going to be the one I want to drop right here. So I'm going to go ahead, I've got it in the position where I want to drop, so I'm going to reach back here, I'm going to find one of those to get rid of, take my shears, cut them off, or cut it off, leave the other one hanging. Alright, drop this one down there and continue to plat for a second. Okay, now I've got this second one that I want to drop. It's going to be this one on the side here, just like I did with that one. I'm going to take my shears, reach back here, if I can get them out of my pocket, cut this other one off. Be careful not to cut off the one you just dropped. Done that before, so try not to do that. It makes things a little more interesting. And you're going to drop that one to the center and start platting a 6 plat around the 2 that you've just dropped. Okay, now we're going to plat this 6 plat around these 2 for 3 inches. Around 3 inches, if you take your shears, cut one of them off and just plat the 6 plat around one of the strands. And just remember, every once in a while, reach up there and give them a little tug, make sure that they're in there good and tight. See, they're kind of sticking out, and just give them a little pull. Give one of them a pull, the other one a pull, like that. Kind of makes it nice and neat looking. And keep platting. And what's going to happen is when you cut this one of these strands, it's going to taper that 6 plat down a little bit without having to do anything else. And it'll just get you ready to drop to a 5 plat. And I got to where I don't really like, when I get down to this part, to plat very much in an uneven number of plats, because it's hard to make your seam look right. I don't really like doing the 5 plat, but it doesn't really look as good dropping down from a 6 to a 4. So I just grin and bear it. So once you get about 3 inches down there, just reach back and get your shears, cut one of those guys off. Keep on platting, and I'll pick it back up when we get to where we need to go to a 5 plat. Okay, we are now at 54 inches, around 54 inches. Obviously this will be the one I'm going to drop next, because it's the short black one that's there. And I mean, if I'd have cut it any shorter, I'd have been getting really worried. So what we're going to do, just like on the other ones, the one we've been platting around here, be sure it's nice and tight. I'm going to flip over like that, grab my shears and clip it off, get it out of there. And this one's going to drop down and take its place like that. And we're going to go down to a 5 plat, which, if anything, on a 5 plat, that's really where when you drop from a 6 to a 5, that's when it really starts for me to, be kind of get a little difficult to make it look like your seam is straight from, at this point. It's just really a weird little uneven plat number here, and it kind of does make the seam jog to different direction a little bit there. It's just one of those things you got to try to work around and make it look as good as possible. Doesn't hurt to, once you plait it, especially when you get along in here with the 7s, 8, 7s. I mean, really, it doesn't hurt to kind of, when I plait around, even give it a little tug like that, even after I get it plaited around. I'm going to pull on the top and pull on the bottom some too through here. Try to get it a little, just a little more tight. The one that just dropped, make sure it's still pulled in there. We're going to plait this for about 3 inches on this 5 plait here. Maybe 3 inches. You can go right to a 4 plait. It's 4 plait, nice even number of plaits, nicely, looks nice. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to pick my strand to drop. It's going to be that guy right there. The one that's shorter. Keep plaiting around, get him in position for a drop. Alright, got him there. Take back. Cut this one off evenly up in there. Let it go. Give him a little tug there in the middle. Make sure it's tight. Okay, so we've gotten down to, let's see, I think it's 60 inches, 5 feet basically, here at the end of our 4 plait. And what you need to do is be sure it's good and tight. Every strand is pulled tight. We're setting up for the tapered twist. Going to be different than we did earlier with the belly. Alright, it's good to have all your strands down here nice and long that are left over. I mean, you don't want to get down here and have, all of them 3 inches long. So having these long is fine. You have a little waste, but it's okay. Now you can do this a number of ways. Depends on where you set these up. You can have you can do your tapered twist solid black. I'll give you an example. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and cut this strand we've been plaiting around out. Just get rid of it. Alright, it's gone. Now if I want to do an all black tapered twist, I would take, again, this strand, pull it tight, bring it around, match it to the bottom right. This strand, kind of pull it tight, match it around the bottom left, and get some handy dandy hemostats or hemostat, clamp it, and you would pull this strand into the black one, and you pull this strand into the black one, and you have an all black tapering twist. Or if you've got the excess length you can mess with, and you have the liberty to decide. Or you can just plait around one more time, okay, just like you normally would. Then you're set up to have one that's tan and black twisted. So then you would take the top right, match it around to the bottom left, top left, and give it a little tug, match it around to the bottom right, like this. Make sure they're good and tight, holding them tightly. So we're going to do a 2-tone twist. Clamp it down right there with that hemostat. Alright, it's clamped, it's not going anywhere. You give this one a tug, give this one a tug. The one that's on top is the shorter one here, and I'm going to take and measure it 3 inches out, give or take, doesn't have to be precise. I'm going to cut it right there, drop it off. Okay, now all my other lighters ran out of fluid, so I'm going to use this big huge grill striker, but we're going to melt the end of it just a little bit there. Alright, we're going to attach a lacing needle to it. Hopefully we'll get it on the first try. That hemostat's holding everything together up there for you, so not much to worry about. Alright, looks like our temp is going to be good. Sometimes it's not. I'm going to trim the little edge there off that's left over. Okay, that's trimmed. Again, give the bottom one a little tug, the long one a tug, give the top one a little tug. Since I don't really have sharpened lacing needles, I'm going to take this fid right here, poke a hole into, kind of poke a hole in here down You want it to be up close, but not too close maybe. Somewhere right in there. You poke it and get it where you can open up a hole there. Make room for your lacing needle to go. You work your lacing needle down in there like that. Okay. And it should pull right on down in there. Just like this. Okay, that's your first one. Alright, you just let that one hang right there. Go ahead and take your hemostat, move it over and clamp the one you just did. We'll just leave the lacing needle in there for a bit, and we're going to do the same thing on this side. But this time I'm going to take this one because I want to taper my tapering twist. This one's going to be longer than that one, so I'm actually going to make this one about 6 inches. I'm going to cut it off at 6 inches there. It's about right there. Doesn't have to be precise. Cut it. Get ready. Take our overly large lighter striker thing here. Heat it up. Make sure you don't burn yourself. Try to attach the lacing needle. Maybe get it on the first try. Yep, we did it. Trim the little edge off right there. Come back with the fid. Take your hole, and I don't know if I'm getting where you can see this, but take the hole and open it up. Again, you're just trying to open it where the lacing needle will fit. If your lacing needles haven't been sharpened, you can sharpen them and they'll push right down there, but I haven't done so because I'd probably poke myself too much with them. I use them for other things like making Turk's heads on bull whips and stuff. Pull it right on down in. Sometimes if your lacing needle's not on really well, it'll come off down in there and you have to start over, and that's not really fun, but sometimes it happens. Okay, I'm going to give everything there a nice pull. Okay, you're ready to start your twist. You don't have to worry about that little fuzzy thing for right now. Just don't worry about that. That sometimes happens. Okay, for the tape, now you got them set up. Set up for your tapering twist. It's going to be a two-tone twist. Still got our lacing needles in there we'll have to deal with in a second. And tell you what, we're going to reset the camera up and where we can do this next shot. And we'll do the twist and show you how to get the lacing needles out, and then we'll be finished with this thing. Alright, going to do the tapered twist. The way you do tapered twist, you've got them set up, you got them pulled inside. I use everything, I hold everything with these fingers right here. This hand does the twisting. I twist hard to the right, move it over to the left, twist hard to the right, move it over to the left. Just like that. Doesn't look like I'm doing much, but I'm really putting a lot of twist onto it. It's not going to twist but so much. And now if you get down here where one of these lacing needles are, what I'll do is I'll just kind of hold everything and do like this. It'll actually pop through the side usually, and you can unscrew it and it won't damage the threads really. It'll just pop right through. Just take it out, smooth it back down. It's out of the way now. Just keep on twisting. And when you see, the reason why I cut that other one shorter was because you see I've already run back to a single strand here, and it's actually helping to taper this thing. So we'll have a double one here. This black one's doubled still, and we're twisting a single one around it, so it kind of makes it narrow down a little bit. Okay, we're back down to where this is getting in the way. Again, I just push it through the side like that, unscrew it from in there, pull it out of your way, smooth it back out, just keep on twisting. And we get down here, we're going to tie this, we get down to about 72 inches. If you want to, you can put a few more inches in there to the, or you make it a few inches longer. But 72 is what we're shooting for. That's 6 feet. This will be a 6-foot cow whip. Like I said earlier, if you want to make a 12-foot cow whip, you simply take everything you've learned here and double it. And all the measurements where we've dropped, you double those, and you've made a 12-foot cow whip. Pretty simple. We're almost, now you see you had a thicker twist here where you got the tapered here. Now we're down to just 2 cords being twisted together. You know, I've been asked in the past, you know, there's different ways of doing this. Some other people at the end, they're going to finish their ends differently, like pulling them back inside and things. And you know, one person asked me the other day, hey man, why do you still do it like that? You know, it'd probably be better if you do it the other way, you know, like so and so. And I said, well, you know, this is the way I finish them. It's kind of the way I do it. Other people don't have to do it that way, but so, you know, it can be like my signature way of doing it. So you know, there's a bunch of different ways to tie off one of these things and finish them off. So you don't have to do it just like I do it here. You may use a method you feel it's better, and that's great. Okay, so we went a little past 12 inches here to about 14. That'll be fine. Actually, sometimes I'll just go a little further in case all the pressure I've been pulling against it, if it decides to shrink back up some. Very simple the way we're going to tie this off. You wouldn't believe it. Now here's what we do. You've got it down to here where you want it to stop. I'll take the top one, wrap it over the top like this, pull it down tight. I take this one around the back, I wrap it over the top like that, and pull it down through here, and give them a real good tug on the ends of them right here. And that is the way I finish it. And what we're going to do in a minute, we're going to take the wood burner and burn these off, and we're going to actually put a fall on it, and this whip will essentially be done except for the wax and the handle. Alright, we're going to finish as I was showing how to cut off these things with a wood burner. We run out of space on our card, so we had to change it out, and that footage was useless, so it stopped dead to center of me cutting this thing off. So what we're going to do, we cut it off. Now I'm going to take this wood burner and I'm going to smooth it down, kind of melt it down a little bit right there, just like that, over the end of that. Try to keep it, seal it over. Cut it again on this side, and I melt it down over this. Now believe it or not, about the only people that I've seen tear this knot up has been some cowboys. I actually saw a whip that I'd made for Steve Kaliski years ago. I think I did a YouTube video on that, where the knot was still intact and the fall was on there and everything after like 9 years. And Steve uses the whip quite a bit, so it'll last a while if you take care of your whips. Okay, we're going to put the fall on now. I've got an obnoxiously long piece of paracord that I cut here, so I'm going to lay it against it like this. Take and wrap it around and around and around and around. Take the long end that's hanging, run it back through here like this, pull it through. I've probably seen this video on cowwhips.com with a different whip I was showing. But we're going to do it again here. Just kind of work these loops around and give it a real nice tug. I mean, really pull on that thing tight. Get it down in there. Okay, now what I've done is I've attached this is something new that I'm doing that you didn't see me do on cowwhips.com, something I just started doing. I've got a 22-inch piece of paracord here, black, attached to a nice lacing needle with a sharp point, somewhat sharp. It came like that, I didn't sharpen it. And I'm going to run it back through the end of the fall here, all the way up. Toward the place I just tied it on with. Now, the reason why I do this is because, like this, is if I had a doubled up piece of paracord or a piece of paracord with the core still in it, it would make a really big knot right there, and I don't want to have a big knot there. So try to eliminate that. This is what I came up with. So I run this piece of paracord back up the middle of the fall we just tied on, 22-inch piece. So that way we'll still have a little bit on the end down there that's not doubled up, where it'll make it easier to put a cracker on. What I do is I pull it up in there, and I take this and I poke it through right up there at the knot where we tied it on. I pull it out just to where the end of the lacing needle comes through. I untie it, or I twist it off I should say, throw it down. Get the slack out of it there like that, and I've effectively doubled up this piece of paracord for my fall. If there's a little piece sticking out right there on the end or something, you can just touch it ever so slightly with your wood burner to be sure that it's not going to fray out. And you can take the wood burner and trim this piece off here however long you want it, and throw it down, and that's your fall. And we're going to do waxing, and other than that, the thong is complete. Okay, there you have it. The 6-foot cow whip is now complete. The thong is anyway. If you're one of the folks who doesn't care to wax your whip, I guess you're totally done. I've already rolled the whip off camera, so that's already been done. You'll want to go ahead and do that as well if you haven't already. And I mean, that's it. I think it was somewhat a simple process. Hopefully made it simple as possible. And the next thing we're going to do is the handle, and I'll show you. I'm not going to be very extensive with that, but I'm going to explain that, and then we'll get it in some wax, get a popper on it, and we'll be done.